Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is a Kid Native Bloody Elbow, joined by Connor Rubish of BloodyElbow.com to talk about whatever it was we just saw coming from a barn in Bangor, Maine. It was the UFC Fight Night, OSP versus Bader, or Bader versus OSP. It was a mugging, a mauling, a handling, a unanimous decision win for Ryan Bader. Is OSP the future of the light heavyweight division? I believe that question has been answered. Connor, do you disagree?
Yeah. That wasn't
Yeah.
really that was a disappointing main event. You've got to be honest. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Particularly when I
fans of Lay and Pray are just going to be going through this one for hours, I think.
well, I think I was actually pleased that Bader went to his wrestling, but I'll tell you what was really disappointing to me was the fact that he had no confidence in standing there with OSP. OSP has the awkwardness may have been what threw Bader off, but it's like he was just content to run straight back, just running away from all these left hands when he could have hit those reactive takedowns he hit in round one all night. I thought his wrestling was the highlight of his performance. I thought his boxing, I really expected more from it because it looked pretty solid in his last few performances. Don't know.
It was one of those fights where I didn't think either guy looked particularly good, and
Agreed.
UFC light heavyweight champion John Jones trolled the fighters and everyone by tweeting out "LOL" at what I'm seeing right now at 11:59 a.m. Eastern time, and then quickly deleted it, which is one of his key Twitter techniques. But so Bader takes a unanimous decision win, 48-47, 49-46, 49-46, and honestly, I don't have anything else to say about the main event. Do you?
No, I really don't. I'm disappointed in Bader. I think after his last fight, we all thought, man, Bader's hitting his stride, and he still could be. I have a theory that perhaps it was yet another instance of an orthodox fighter completely just killing their chances at fighting a southpaw by just, you know what I mean, following all these standard rules, like only circle left. And Bader was just, he had no idea how to deal with that distance. He could not deal with the increased range, combined with the fact that St. Preux is completely willing to throw himself off balance and overextends to land a shot from the outside. So he just was really uncomfortable standing with St. Preux, and it was pretty obvious.
Yeah, that's a pretty cogent point about Bader. You could almost hear him reading, thinking through these things his striking coach had told him as
Yeah.
he fought, and then trying to do that. It was a little bit robotic. I think for Bader, it was one of those deals where he thought, at least based on his pre-fight hoo-ha, which you never know if fighters believe that or not. I mean, that's not really the point of pre-fight talk. Like, if fighters are saying what their actual strategy is, that's not very good pre-fight talk. It's
Right.
just, but Bader was saying, I'm going to tie up with him and show him I'm the stronger man. It seemed Bader learned pretty quickly he was not like the physically dominant specimen in there.
Yeah. I mean, I thought his wrestling was pretty sharp,
Well,
actually. I thought
sure, he's an excellent wrestler. I mean,
it was nice to see him actually lean on it. But I mean, I guess if we're done talking about that, I
for
do.
like a round and a half.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he leaned on St. Preux for a good long while.
Indeed, indeed. It was yeah. So the co-main event, Ross
On,
Pearson destroys Gray Maynard. Sad day. You wrote a great judo chop about it, coming into this fight. And what the hell happened to Gray Maynard? And it's just, is he chinny? I mean, it looks to me like he's chinny even more so than he's lost his confidence. But it seems like both.
I, I, I'm of the strong opinion that Chin is if half or more mental. I think that we can see that
That's easy
fighters.
for a guy with a beard like yours to say.
Ooh, I know it's finally come in after a good four years of growing and
You
applying
look like you're
ointments and
ready to join the
oils.
Taliban. And
That's the dark basement. I got the cave set up. I'm all ready to go.
you got the scarf over your lamp for the ladies, like, 'cause
Oh,
it's
this is a Mexican blanket, my friend.
Oh, that is nice. A nice Keith Richards style. Whereas I've got my blender light on in my hovel because we spare no expense at the MMA Nation blog cast or whatever the hell
I
it
want to
says.
try and convince people that we are in an office building of some kind, and this is just what our offices look like.
The MMA Nation studios, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen. This is where I keep my old hat collection and CDs that I burned. And for some reason, I'm stacked up there on the desk for no reason. Anyway, back to the fights because that's how fucking compelling this card was.
Well, I want to say I thought this was a very entertaining fight. This really was the main event of the night for me in terms
Pearson and
of.
Maynard. It
Yeah,
was entertaining, but it was also sad. I
it
mean,
was. And had Bader performed as I expected him to. I was getting ready to come onto this broadcast with you and say, hey, the man of the night is Jose Benavidez Jr., who is the boxing coach there at Power MMA, because he's done wonders for CB Dalloway. And except for tonight, he's done really well for Ryan Bader, who has looked very improved. And I got to be honest, technically
I think
speaking,
Bader was kind of afraid to tangle with OSP.
yeah, I think so too. But
And
Gray
wisely
Maynard,
so. I mean, why fuck around boxing a guy who could knock your lights out?
I agree with that. But Gray Maynard, while his confidence issues were not there, or chin issues, whatever
I
they
don't
may
know.
be.
I felt he was circling away early and often.
But I think technically he was on point. I mean, he was hooking off the jab. He had much improved defense. Like, his head movement was better than it's been in a long time. And the body punches he was landing on Pearson, especially against the cage, he was finally like blending phases, which is something he's almost never been able to do. Wrestling and then stopping wrestling for a moment to box. And man, had Pearson not been so calm and collected, he got hit with 3 or 4 clean left hooks in round 1 that would have put him on his ass had he not seen him coming. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Maynard looked good, but the thing was that I saw was Maynard was landing shots that a younger and more impetuous Gray Maynard would have followed up on with impunity.
Yeah.
And he was easing off, and he was circling away at times when I think he would have been better served to come forward. He didn't bully Ross Pearson. I mean, Gray Maynard is not the bully anymore, and it's sad. I mean, it's an epic tale, and to me the real tragedy of Gray Maynard is that nobody saw the great pair of fights with Frankie Edgar. It's like, how do you have a pair of great fights like that and nobody gives a shit? You know,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's bad enough for Maynard because he lost those, but he lost them in a vacuum. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it had no impact on the sport, and to me those were 2 of the greatest, most epic fights I've ever seen in my life in any combat sport.
I think so. And having watched each of them, and his first fight with Edgar was also fantastic. I mean, those two have a chemistry. They're
It
kind of
makes
like
a
Pacquiao
legendary
Marquez.
trilogy. Yeah, it's a legendary trilogy without the bullshit 4th fight of the Pacquiao Marquez.
Yeah.
Well, partisan,
bullshit,
whatever. I mean, it shouldn't have happened that way, Connor. That's what I'm saying. We were gonna have a mega fight.
I think that what you're saying, though, that speaks to Maynard's confidence issues. And I think the difference is that the old Maynard was it took a lot to convince the old Maynard that he was not going to win, that he had to go on the defensive, that he had to stop firing back. You know what I mean? He always needed to get momentum to start winning, but it took a beating to get him to start losing. And ever since that draw to Frankie Edgar, it's like he couldn't kill Frankie Edgar in the first round of their second fight, and he just thought, well, I may as well stop trying, and then he got hurt and it was over. And it's taken less and less in each fight since then to basically convince him that it's over. Except this time, I think that the technique that Jose Benavidez helped him with, and the fact that he went back to his wrestling and seemed to have more confidence in that did help him. But he still, once he got tagged clean, it was like, you know what I mean? He didn't throw a single punch after that. He just backed up and waited for it to be over.
Yeah. It's just, you know, it's like the great Tim Sylvia said, the maniac who wasn't invited to the big UFC coming out party in Maine. 90% of this game is half mental. So one of my favorite, Tim Sylvia, speechwriter for the George W. Bush administration.
Does that mean 45% of the game is mental? Is my math right there?
You really are not well served by trying to parse out the meaning of. It's like a Zen koan. You know, the sound of one hand clapping. You don't sit there and go, well, what is the sound of one hand clapping? You try to just let it flow over you and feel the Tim Sylvianess.
Bask in the wisdom.
Yes, indeed. So that was a good. I mean, it was an entertaining fight. It was sad as it was to see. I mean, that's what you pay for. You know, that was good stuff. And then the Tim Butch Brad Tavares fight, amazing comeback for Tim Butch. The second, just as amazing as his win over Yushin Okami a while back, although on a much smaller stage, but in front of his hometown. Because at first Tavares was coming out like he was really terrified by Stephen King novels as a small child and was going to make the whole state of Maine pay.
Yeah. How long were you sitting on that line? My God.
I've been honing that. I stole it off somebody on Twitter, and I've been honing it all evening, just polishing it up. But you know, honestly, I blew it because it shouldn't have been novels. Like, who are you kidding? Brad Tavares is reading Stephen King novels. He saw Pennywise on TV. And,
yeah, that's right.
And it's just been, you know, just scarred ever since.
He didn't see Pennywise. He watched The Mist. He's not that old. He's a recent Stephen King fan.
The Mist.
He watched 1408 or something like that. But man, you know what I gotta say? I think Tim Boetsch was having the same thing going on with him that's still going on with Gray Maynard for a long time. And I honestly think that being in front of his hometown crowd, being in Maine, is what gave him the confidence to beat what really is not a tune-up fight in Brad Tavares. Tavares is a very tough fighter, and he was whooping Boetsch's ass, but we saw Boetsch do what he used to be capable of. He used to be capable of these tremendous comebacks. What he did to Okami, it was almost impossible to break his will. And then ever since that really rough bout against Costa Philippou, it's like he just wasn't there. He didn't seem like he wanted to be there. And tonight, even though he wasn't having an easy go of it, I think it was pretty clear he wanted to be in that fight. He wanted to win the entire time. He seemed really motivated.
I'm about to make possibly the most tasteless remark of my storied and infamous career here, but Tim Boetsch, it's like his faith in referees was demolished, like the citizens of Ferguson's belief in their local police force. Because after Costa Philippou just violated every rule and norm of fighting ethic with eye pokes and hell, and breaking Boetsch's hand. Okay, that was Tim's fault, but I mean, you know, it's like he's just never believed he was safe in the cage since Philippou. That was a bear baiting, is what that was.
It really seemed like that, didn't it? It seemed like Boetsch was just this monster who was in there to just be taunted and played. Yeah.
Just chained to the wall, and the dogs just don't stop coming. And there's this point at which the monster's scary, and then the monster's scared, and everybody in the arena is sort of nauseated and saddened, but then they start howling for blood again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway.
But in a reaction to that, I mean, it was heartening to see Boetsch turn it around and get another comeback win. I mean, I felt genuinely warmed and happy for his success. I like Boetsch. I want him to do well.
Sure. He's always been an entertaining fighter. Although at this point I was really... I imagine what Joe Silva was thinking was that, Tavares will be getting past Boetsch, moving on to bigger and better things. It's like, what do you do with Tim Boetsch now?
Yeah, what do you do with Brad Tavares, too? I mean,
give him a tune-up fight. I mean, this is just 2 in a row. And losing to Yoel Romero, I mean, no shame in that. That guy's one of the most dominant physical forces in the division.
And to his credit, he was competitive, and in the fight with Yoel Romero, despite getting tossed around, he was winning, or trying to win the whole time. And in this fight, he was arguably... or pretty convincingly winning until he got knocked out. So.
Yeah, he was whipping Boetsch's ass. I mean, there was no two ways about that. But the problem is what that does to your confidence. Yushin Okami never really recovered from that Tim Boetsch comeback. So, we'll see. And the Barbarian is still. I mean, maybe he can get his mojo back, but there was at one point where he tried one of his patented. Just pure brute strength.
Redneck judo throws?
Yes, the redneck judo, and thank you for remembering that, because I've been trying to remember what the phrase was all evening. He tried it, and it just was like, whoa, Dad, you've been drinking too many six-packs. And your kid is getting bigger and stronger because, Junior came home from college, and the old man can't do it to him anymore, and it was...
That may just be that Brad Tavares is being a Polynesian islander much more difficult to take down or to knock out than your average person. Credit to Tim Boetsch for cracking a Hawaiian's chin, because that is not something that's easy to do. Brad Tavares has proven to fit that generalization, because the man can take a punch, and an awkward punch from Boetsch is all it took to start that finishing sequence.
Yeah, that just caught him in the perfect place. And speaking of perfect, Alan Jubain, I mean, this guy, he's pretty and he can fight. He took, at one point, I tweeted that every ugly guy watching this was saying, "Take that, pretty boy." But then the good guys won there in the end, and beauty won out over brutality, because Jubain looked pretty impressive in his UFC debut.
He really did.
As a fighter as well as a male model.
Yeah, he did. He looked very impressive. Striking, I didn't expect. I mean, I got to be honest. I did not expect Juban to come out and strike with Bashinsky. And Bashinsky's never been a polished striker, really, but he's still pretty crafty and dangerous in the feet. He was managing to tag up Thiago Alves pretty well. So I thought, there's no way that Juban's going to do better than Alves did, and that was a vintage-looking Thiago Alves. But Juban went in there. He showed some some unexpectedly good head movement, nice awareness of countering and staying in range. So when Bashinsky would miss on a strike, Jaban was still close enough to him to just wang him with a big counter. And yeah, it was a thrilling fight too. I said that Pearson Maynard was the fight of the night, but man, this one had like 2 or 3 almost knockdowns. Joban got just about dropped once, and Bashinsky was rocked by several shots. They were just trading these blows, but yeah, credit to Joban for a gutsy performance against, in my opinion, one of the toughest veterans in the UFC right now. Bashinsky is not an easy out for anybody.
No, he's a solid. I mean, mid-level gatekeeper. I wouldn't. Toughest veteran is a bit hyperbolic.
He's no easy UFC debut.
No, he is definitely not. That was a classic. Throw the new kid to the wolves. All right, and that brings us to heavyweight. Sean Jordan and Jack May. Third round TKO for Sean Jordan, and another pretty. I mean, I won't say it was a technically good fight, but as far as fans of action, there was lots of shifts and back and forth.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's what you want from a big heavyweight. Slobber knocker. That's what it was. It was just Sean Jordan's face said it all at the end of that fight, and he was the one walking away from a prone opponent. So, hats off. Any thoughts on the technique there in that one?
I mean, it was nothing to write home about. Sean Jordan has always had like spots of pretty decent technical boxing, and then it kind of goes out the window when he gets into a brawl. But I mean, I'm pretty happy with the result of the fight. Sean Jordan showed that he's still a reliable action heavyweight who can ragdoll people who aren't as good as him. And Jack May showed that he's better than we thought he was. He came in and didn't even seem to be. He seemed to be a half-round fighter. He gassed out like 2 or 3 minutes into some fights, and he was in there till the end. He didn't exactly look fresh in the third round, but he made a good show of it against a guy who has definitely run the gauntlet in the UFC a couple of times at this point. So yeah. It was a fun fight.
And it was good to see Jordan get a win after 2 losses in a row.
Yeah, it was.
And so hopefully he'll get to stay around. And both of these guys I'd like to see fight again. So that brings us to the opening of the main card on Fox Sports 1. The featherweight Thiago Tavares making his featherweight debut, longtime UFC lightweight, and demolished Robbie Peralta. Frankly, I'm probably the only one that wasn't surprised by that. But
I don't think I was surprised either. I think on our vivisection
I just said I was the only one that wasn't surprised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't contradict me. Okay, nobody's going to go back and check the tape.
Folks, you have no idea how close I am every day to being fired from writing for Bloody Elbow. It's walking a tightrope every single day. No
it's
forgiveness.
I study the work, Stalin and Mao and the great evil dictators just to manage the staff there at Bloody Elbow and MMA Nation, and just you got to pull the rug out from under them and keep them guessing and anyway, but never mind. But Tavares looked big and impressive and mean and skilled. I mean, is he going to top out at the middle of the division in featherweight just like he did the lightweight, or what?
Boy, I really don't know. To me, the focus of this fight was Robbie Peralta, because how many fights has he had in the UFC? 6? 5 or 6?
Yeah.
How do you have 6 fights in the UFC and not know how to grapple? You know what I mean? Robbie Peralta, and there's no nice way to say it, Robbie Peralta flat out does not know how to grapple. I remember I've had this impression of him since like 2 or 3 fights ago. I saw him and he could not escape from side control. He wasn't trying to elevate his hips. He wasn't trying to get back to half guard. He wasn't doing anything. He was just laying there and he was turning away from side control, which even anybody who's just an average MMA fan knows you got to turn into the guy. You've got to shrimp and turn into him.
But he trains at the Grappling is Gay Academy.
Yes.
Homo bro and
that's the thing. He got Tavares from Mount. He got him in a schoolyard headlock and tried to stand up, and his corner said, yes, go. Is that really what you wanted him to do?
No, that was we neglected to mention OSP's corner in the main event.
Oh God! Break his arm. Yeah, he was giving them the ultimate hype job in that corner. He literally wanted to see Ryan Bader's blood just covering OSP.
Yeah, it was small time coaching, I would say. It was not big time coaching. There and so anyway, that was a digression from Robbie Peralta. Yes, that was actually Peralta's 7th UFC fight, and he had a Strikeforce fight. So
he didn't even bump his hips once when he was stuck in Mount. He tried to roll over. He was giving up arm bars all day.
Seriously, I give my 6-year-old better grappling advice when we wrestle around the living room than he's getting from his coaches. That is, yeah. But Tavares will make you look bad. But
true, but I mean, Tavares is
Peralta
very
was doing
crafty.
everything he could to
That's
look.
the thing. His corner doesn't know what to tell him. That's why it's so disheartening, because it's like Peralta doesn't know better. He's not just a bad grappler. He's a bad grappler with no hope of improving, because he's at this camp and they're just telling him the same things. They're like cheering him on when he's just strengthening his way out of bad positions.
Yeah, it's not pretty, but it is what it is. And Tavares, though, let's talk about Tavares. This is a guy who looked very promising low these many years ago when he came to the UFC. I think like how long ago? 2007?
Has it really been that long?
Dude, it was 2007, April 2007.
Wow.
Yeah, and so 7-year UFC career, pretty. I mean, he's been through it all, including testing positive for drostanolone. But he topped out fairly early on in his UFC career. Lost to Tyson Griffin in a pretty tough fight. Matt Wyman, Kurt Pellegrino, Shane Roller. I mean, Nurmagomedov was the guy who chased him out of the division with a TKO. I just don't think he's fast enough, and I don't think his striking is good enough to handle the elite of the featherweight. I mean, Frankie Edgar is now among the elite of the featherweight division, so it's the same crop of guys, basically, that bullied him out of the lightweight division. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. Any thoughts?
I agree with you. I was encouraged by his performance. I thought he looked very technically sound on the ground, though that's not exactly difficult to do against Peralta. But I don't know how much upside he has as a featherweight. He looked like he had some decent strength. He looked like he had some nice, his movements were explosive and powerful. He looked like he was in control. But we all know the smaller you go, the more important speed is. And even the strongest guys at featherweight, like Chad Mendes, is a powerhouse, but he's fast. He's lightning fast. He's very explosive. You can't just be strong. Being bigger is less and less important as you go down and down, because everybody is they're like mosquitoes all over the place. So.
Yeah, we'll see. But speaking of mosquitoes, do you see how Formaga totally dominated Zach Makovsky? And I heard it was Zane Simon that was talking about him taking it back, or was it you? It was Zane talking about how little wrestling matters in flyweight because the scrambles are so inevitable, and it's the back-taking skill, and Makovsky just completely played into his hands. So
Dallas was the only one to pick Formiga, though. Dallas was the only one to pick Formiga. We both picked Makovsky.
That was probably based on some harebrained emotional reason, right?
Probably, but
yeah.
he said Formiga's so good in the scrambles that you make one mistake. And Pat Wyman and Pat Wyman and Zane Simon and TP Grant and I were talking during the event, and Pat made a very good point and said that Zach Makovsky, with his lack of finishing potential, basically has a very small margin of error, and he just made way too many errors against Formiga, and that's not the kind of fighter you want to make errors against. He tried that same hip toss 4 or 5 times, and Formiga caught onto it, took his back, and the worst thing about it is that third round only serves to emphasize how much better Makovsky could have done, because Makovsky looked dynamite in the third round. He looked like
took it on all 3 cards. I haven't seen the cards, but I mean, it was a 29-28 unanimous decision. So everybody thought he won one round, and it had to have been the third round.
Yeah, and he looked really good. I mean, he had Formiga stuck on his back. He was passing guard. He even passed and then stood up out of his pass position and went back to guard, just to kind of keep Formiga busy. And he was doing peppering him with punches, avoiding the up kicks. It looked good. I mean, it was point fighting, but it was tactical, smart, entertaining point fighting. But you can't just give your back to somebody like Formiga over and over. But I've got to give credit to Formiga too. He looks so much more comfortable on the feet than he has in quite a few of his UFC performances, and he looked that way against Scott Jorgensen as well. The headbutt notwithstanding, he really has looked to be. I don't know if something's changed in his training. Improving.
He's improving, and he seems stronger. And when you fight in Bangor, Maine, you don't have to worry about your medicine too much. I don't think. I'm not saying anything about De Silva. I'm just saying the dude looks stronger, and coincidentally, I guarantee you Bangor, Maine is not having rigorous drug testing. So if you want to draw snide conclusions from that, that's up to you. I'm not doing that. Okay. So just let my mind run here at midnight, because my God, it was a long evening, but it wasn't a terrible one. Now that I look back at this,
no, there were fun fights. It just 10 p.m. is a little late for like a TV card. You're all in your living room. You're not. These aren't marquee fights.
No, it's not like the gang came over to, there's not the big fight. You're not in a tuxedo on the front row, next to Scarlett Johansson or anything here. This was Bangor, Maine. Why am I being so hard on Maine? I'm from Texas, for God's sake. It's like anyway. Well, that's why. All right. So Sarah McMahon, Lauren Murphy. Now this was a fairly tedious fight.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in Sarah McMahon's performance, man. I really am. I can excuse what she did because she's still very young in her MMA career. She's still very raw, and she's still.
And she won the fight.
Yeah, well, I actually had it for Lauren Murphy on my cards.
Did you really?
I did.
Really? I gave her one round, but not two. And one of the judges gave her the fight as well.
I gave her 1 and 3. I think that she just did. I thought that McMahon just did not do enough. You cannot just hold somebody down with their butt on the ground, but get elbowed in the ear 100 times. I mean, yes, McMahon's strikes when she managed to get posture and throw from the top were more powerful, but 50 powerful strikes does not outdo 150 decent ones. It just doesn't. I thought Murphy's activity, I think Murphy knew she couldn't out-wrestle her. She just wanted to put her back to the cage and try to beat her up and break her down. I thought she did a pretty good job of it. McMahon showed some improvements, jiu-jitsu-wise and MMA-wise, but she's clearly still stuck in this mode of going for wrestling techniques and then being completely caught off guard when the other person just starts smacking her in the face. She's not adapting or hitting it with enough tenacity to know that you can't just chill out in this kind of position. You have to go.
It's true, and she's coming off the pretty crushing title fight loss to Ronda Rousey, and it's got to be a bring down to go from the top of the card, or I can't remember, co-main event at the top of the card in Vegas to the co-main event of the preliminary Fox
not
Sports
even
2
the
card.
featured, not even being the featured prelim on
on Fox Sports 2, no less. Not even.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's worse than Fight Pass.
I think it is.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because
Fight Pass, there are reasons to buy Fight Pass. Nobody's going to buy Fox Sports 2 just for prelims. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, you're talking to a guy who's paying for Fox Sports 2 extra. So, I'm feeling like a chump here.
You are from Texas, so.
And it is also my job. So, and if you were trying to stream the fights tonight, they didn't even get them in England tonight. There was some cricket game going on to one of these unscheduled 8-day marathons that cricket games sometimes erupt into. I'm told, not that I know anything about
I won't
cricket.
say how I know this, but BT Sport was showing only soccer and cricket for a good hour into the broadcast.
It was Twitter. People were talking about it on Twitter. That's all I'm saying. But So McMahon, I was hoping for a performance from McMahon that would send a message and show some growth. And you're right that that didn't happen. The one good thing she did learn, which A, she gave an interview, and B, she talked a tiny bit of smack. Mm-hmm. And so that was what she should have been doing before a title fight, but better late than never.
I don't think it comes naturally for her. I don't want to judge her by her appearance, but she looks very sweet. She's like a smiley, nice, quiet person. I think that she's just not the smack-talking type.
But here's something, because I'm a really deep down, sweet, wonderful person, but I'm just a horrible asshole because I try hard. And it's against my nature. Okay, so that's not true. That came naturally for me, but I read about a guy. The founder of the Rolling Stones, Keith Richards, said about the late Brian Jones, who some say Keith Richards paid to have drowned in a swimming pool. I didn't say it. I'm just saying some people say that. Keith Richards said about Brian Jones, he was a real asshole because he was fundamentally a nice guy who set out to be an asshole. And having set out to be an asshole, boy, was he an asshole. If Sarah McMahon could just channel a little bit of that mojo, then she too could end up drowned in a swimming pool someday.
She did have some beautiful chained wrestling techniques too. She was switching from one takedown to another very, very well. Those singles from I wish my wrestling terminology were better, but when she was running around the back to finish those singles,
running the pipe.
I wasn't running the pipe though, because she didn't run her off her feet. She would switch to the back to drive her forward.
Yep.
I wish I knew the term for it.
Yeah, Coach Mike. It's too bad he's not in my pocket to teleport here to tell us what that was. But
he can shout at me later.
Yeah, he can. I am. But that was probably the least entertaining. That and the main event were two stinkers on the.
You really think so? Because we're about to come up on what I thought was just an incredibly terrible fight.
The Tom Watson smiling Sam Alvey fight.
Oh my God, was this a
At least
bad
there was
fight?
blood on people's faces, though.
No, I prefer Sarah McMahon and Lauren Murphy. At least they're
That's because you're a
relevant
striking
fighters.
snob. I mean,
No, that's not why. Tom Watson and Sam Alvey are irrelevant fighters who didn't even deign to put on a good, like, you know what I mean? They're not top 10 in their division.
no,
They at least you
no.
can do is be an action fighter or something.
That
But
was that was. I thought that Sam Alvey's comeback in the third round was pretty exciting there for
it
a
was
bit.
the least intelligent game plan I've ever seen. I expected so much more from a veteran like Sam Alvey. I said this on Twitter, but it bears repeating. For any aspiring fighters out there, counter-striking is not standing there and waiting for the guy to come forward so you can try and wang him with a big punch behind the ear. You have to do something to make him walk into your counters. Sam Alvey spent at least 70% of that fight with his back to the cage, just waiting to try to hit a left hook, and then he would just run forward with his chin in the air, throwing these loopy arm punches, and Watson wasn't good enough to stop him. I mean, I'm being really harsh on these guys, but I thought that was
This was D grade MMA. I mean,
It was dull.
this would have been. I think you're being a little. I found it sort of entertaining. I found it entertaining. Maybe not the
I'm
first
not
two
a
rounds.
snob because I like Sean Jordan and Jack May, and that wasn't exactly a pretty fight.
They're big thundering heavyweights though, and that had more of an aura to it. But for me, I think I sort of I was watching the first round and I was like, oh, and Sam has nothing for Watson basically. Yeah. And then I tuned out and then I looked back up and it's like, holy shit, he just nailed Watson and then he's gonna pour it on and get the finish, and no, he's not. And so, I mean, that was at least memorable, you know.
That's
I mean,
true. I guess it wasn't that bad. If it had just been the third round, I would have enjoyed it more. I should have taken your strategy and gotten distracted by something in the middle of the fight.
Yes, I'm barking orders at people on Instant Messenger throughout an event. That's what's going on because God knows a sporting event like this needs to be covered with the professionalism and.
I'll start bossing my cats around when the fights get going.
That's right. All right, and then the last and least, bantamweights, Frankie Sands and Nolan Tickman. Pretty tedious decision win for Signs. I mean,
think so? I went into this one.
It was very, very one-sided. There was some good technique.
The first round was competitive. I think that Tickman validated what Zane said on the vivisection, which is that in a few years he will probably be the kind of guy who will beat Frankie Science 9 times out of 10. He's very, you know what I mean, a very talented guy. He's athletic, he's powerful, he even throws decent technique, but it's like the experience has not come for him yet. He hasn't learned how to put these things together under pressure, and I think it was the pressure more than anything, more than the layoff even, just the mental pressure that caused him to gas. But Frankie Science struck me as
also the bright lights of Banger, you know.
Yes, yeah, man, you're on the big leagues now. Welcome to a town of 30,000 people. But Frankie Science was like a bantamweight, or I guess normally a flyweight Tim Boetsch to me. He reminded me of Tim Boetsch in that he was just a very hard-nosed, mean, tough bastard when it came to clinch fighting. He didn't really. He seemed not to have a lot going on technically, but he was trying hard and he was refusing to let the fight go. And I guess I admired what he was able to do in you know the younger, stronger, more athletic Tickman.
Jordan Breen was comparing Signs' clinch fighting game to Kyle Baker, who is a totally complete nerd's reference, because Kyle Baker's the guy who made a little bit of waves in the regional scene because he has a really interesting clinch game and long arms, but a number of gaping holes in his game. But Signs, I believe Breen said he fights like a more skilled and controlled Kyle Baker, and so I don't know why I'm bringing that up. Now I'm looking at Bangor, Maine on Google Maps, and boy, is that in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it is on past Portland, Augusta, and Waterville. Next stop, Fredericton, New Brunswick, which is way in the middle of nowhere.
So we know the decisions of the fights. Now the only thing to figure out is how many fighters will make it back out of Bangor, Maine.
At least they don't play banjo music. They just bring occult, eldritch, H.P. Lovecraft tales of backwoods demonic incest.
New England's way scarier than the Deep South.
Oh, fuck yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, New England produced H.P. Lovecraft. The Deep South just came up with William Faulkner. So anyway, that's where we're at. Anything else to add about this show?
In retrospect, it wasn't that bad. I think the main event, you watch a main event like that, and it really just takes
5 long
takes
rounds.
it takes a shit on the rest of the card. You know what
It
I mean?
does. It's like Ryan Bader laid on the whole card for
Because I
5
think
long
back, and
rounds.
I was actually thoroughly enjoying this event. I was pretty wrapped up in it, and then that main event, man, boy, it just stunk up the joint.
Break his arm! Break his arm!
I do it. I want that to be my ringtone.
Oh, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. All right. All right, MMA connoisseurs. I'll be back tomorrow, maybe with the bathrobe review. I'm not sure this one merits it, but depending on just how I feel, we may or may not have a bathrobe review. We'll definitely have a knuckle up on Monday. Then we've got to get ready for UFC 177 because there are so many unanswered questions about the TJ Dillashaw Henan Barrow rematch.
Well, you know what? Before we even talk about that, I just want to remind everybody that if this
Oh,
card
there's 2 cards on the 23rd. Yes,
forget
Fight
the
Night
other one.
Bisping versus Lee.
Forget that one because Henderson versus Dos Anjos is the best card of the year in terms of relevant and exciting matchups. That is a very tempting card, and I hope, even though Henderson's fight with Dos Anjos may not be exciting,
You're trying to tell me that they put the best card of the year in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
trust me, dude. Look at the lineup on this card. It's unbelievably good. I did not understand how good it was. I looked at it and had no idea how stacked this card was. It's got a lot of good fights.
It is pretty good. I'm going down the card, and it's like I'm 9 fights in, and I care about like at least one guy on every.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm excited about the Fight Pass card because Bloody Elbow's own Ben Saunders is opening the card up. That is a good card.
It's a good card.
The Macau card is not. I mean,
no. Those are like tough China fighters. It's not good.
But somebody might unleash the Dim Mak Death Touch, Connor. It's going to be worth getting up at 3 a.m.
All the good or at least semi-interesting traditional martial artists in South and Southeast Asia are already in ONE FC. The UFC got there too late. The ONE FC got into China first. They got into the Philippines first. Now all the UFC has is just some really underwhelming regional level guys from that region. And
from
it's not,
possibly one of the worst regions for MMA.
And I'll be real honest. Like I would rather watch undercard fights from this than I would Kung Lee. Is it Kung Lee and Bisping?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a bad fight, but I'd rather watch Jordan Meehan versus Mike Pyle than Kung Lee versus Bisping. I really would.
Well, it's true, but the fundamental problem with Kung Lee versus Bisping is it should have happened 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but so.
I mean, Ramon versus Lightus, Max Holloway versus Mirsad Bektic, who was on Pat Wyman's prospect report.
One fight on the Macau card, Stun Gun Kim versus Tyrone Woodley is interesting, but yeah, the rest of it, Roland Delorme. Yeah. All right. So anyway, but that's a long way around saying we will have a Care Don't Care preview for that. We'll have there's no way we can preview 2 crappy shows in one show. So we'll have a Care Don't Care and a Vivisection, or maybe 3 ways for both. I don't know. We'll figure it out, and then we'll slide on into UFC 177. I think it's the pay-per-view that's going to turn the UFC's fortunes around this year. It's got just that boom aura to it. It's on Groupon. I don't know why I'm being such a shitty little smartass. But anyway, all right. So, yeah, here we go. Give us a like on YouTube if you can tolerate this crap. This is one fight. We didn't give the disclaimer I sometimes give on the 6th round because occasionally when there's been a big fight or a great fight, a lot of people come on YouTube and really think they're going to be getting the 6th round of the fight from us.
Yeah.
And then hate. Nobody's asking for the 6th round of Bader versus OSP, so I don't have to worry about that tonight. But
some sad self-hating person is looking for the 6th round of Bader versus OSP, and they're actually relieved to hear this bullshit that we're spewing right now. They're actually relieved.
Exactly. So give us a like. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube so you can follow all of the magic that we spew out. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at KidNate. And Connor, you are at BoxingBush, BUSCH.
That's right.
That's much better than your previous Twitter handle, but still, I don't know if we found the perfect Twitter handle yet. But what else do I need to tell people? Twitter, YouTube, BloodyElbow.com. That's where you can see us. And adios, MMA aficionados. I'm going to give you one last shot just to fuck up my perfect exit because we're stone pros.
Yeah. What am I saying now?
That's perfect. So that's it. Adios, MMA aficionados.
See ya.